Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of DIY with jcMoto. Today we're going to talk about this cane carburetor that's come off the ATC250 that I'm currently restoring. And the bike's been out for 15 years, and besides looking like complete crap and having this broken plastic choke nut, the carb didn't turn out to be too bad after all. The butterfly valve was free, and the insides of the carb, well, the jets were all clear, and save a little residue on the float bowl, there wasn't too much wrong with it. The peculiar problem I'm having with this carb though is that the passage from the fuel inlet to the float seat is completely blocked. If I put fuel from in here, it should ideally come out from the petrol inlet, which isn't happening. And of course, I've tried compressed air, which was the first option. I even soaked the carb overnight, but nothing has worked yet. So I'm going to try a couple of options and see where this goes on this video. So one of my go-to tools when I'm cleaning carburetors and have any clogged passages or jets is this carburetor wire cleaning kit, and it's really quite effective for the most part. But with this carburetor, it just seems like whatever gunk was in there had like completely clogged up and hardened, and it didn't seem to work. So before we had access to ultrasonic cleaners, the old-fashioned way of cleaning these passages was through local jugaad. It was a thick gauge copper wire that was stripped and basically twirled in until the gunk or the sort of blockage gave way. And so this is method number 2. And as you can see, this method is a little bit more effective than the carb wire brushes. The gunk is coming out. I put a little bit of fuel in there to soften up the gunk and see if it works a little better. And I'm going to keep going. This carburetor booger is lodged deep, and honestly my fingers hurt, so I think it's just fair to bring out the power tool. Well, the last method before I try something drastic is to use this control cable, cut it to length and put it in the end of my Dremel and give it a go. Now the Dremel rotates at 30,000 RPM, and with a cable that's this hard on a carburetor that's over 20 years old, it's very easy to put a hole through it. Don't ask me how I know. Now when a blockage is this stubborn on a carburetor, it's usually the job for the ultrasonic cleaner. However, I'm not really keen on going to the ultrasonic cleaner because with the lockdown situation here in Bombay, delivery timelines are completely out of whack, and I really want to get this carb up and going pretty quick. So I have another plan. When these passages are drilled at manufacture, they are then cleaned up and a brass plug is inserted into them. So what I'm going to do is drill out the original brass plug, clean the passage through and through, and then put in a new plug. So let's go. Now before I go absolutely mental on this carburetor, I think there are a couple of things to keep in mind. One is to make sure that I use a center punch and accurately and drill right through the center of the plug. The other thing that I'm going to do is not actually use a drill bit that's the size of the passage, but a smaller drill bit which will just drill through the center of the plug, and then use a reverse tap to maybe pull the plug out. This will hopefully ensure that I don't damage the passage of the carburetor. With a hole in the brass plug, I now try to insert the reverse tap to try and pull the plug out, but it looked like the plug was firmly lodged. I also noticed that the edges of the plug had been hammered to hold on to the aluminium, so I used a center punch to free that up a little bit. And I think the best way to get this plug out is to just pry it out. I'm actually quite happy I went down this route and pulled the brass plug out. You can see into the passage and it's blocked pretty solid. And I'm not sure the ultrasonic cleaner would have taken all of that gunk out. I used a Dremel and some WD-40 along with the wire brush to sort of clean the gunk out, and you can see it come through the valve seat right here. Once I had all the gunk removed, I soaked the carb overnight in a carb cleaning solvent, and then blew compressed air through all of the passages to make sure it was 100%. After that, I had a brass plug machined to interference fit for the passage, tapped it in and filed the top off. Did the mod work? It sure did. We had the engine running, it idled perfectly, and you'll see it in one of our next videos.